Hello everybody, Gavin McCormack here. This week we're talking all about meteors, asteroids and comets. And we are on a boat in a library on the Scotia Sea travelling to an island called the Falkland Islands. And this week we're with Dr. Karl. How are you, sir?
Dr. Gavin, welcome.
Now, Dr. Karl, this weekend a meteor travelled between the Earth and the Moon. It was about 70 metres wide. It wasn't a threat to Earth, it wasn't coming towards us, but it was pretty big. What is a meteor?
It's a rocky thing of some sort. If it's in space, it's called a meteoroid, OID. When it comes into the atmosphere can't get out of the way because the thing is moving at, say, 30 kilometers a second. You get a pressure build-up, it gets very hot, and the thing, the rock, vaporizes. It is then called a meteor from the Greek word for atmosphere, hence the science called meteorology. And then when you find one on the ground, it's called a meteorite. I have my own meteorite. My father was looking out the window, looking for inspiration one night in Wollongong for a story. Shoop, straight past the window. We went out the next morning, we looked around. There was a hole about the size of a golf ball in the soil. We then went digging down and it had punched a hole through the root of the pine tree about that much in diameter and stopped. I still have that thing the size of a golf ball, my own meteor, or my own meteorite.
Wow, the universe delivered you a gift.
It was for free. It's like eclipses, for free.
Amazing. Now look, meteors, asteroids, comets, what are the difference between those three?
An asteroid is a rocky thing, iron rocky or rocky, between about 2 meters and 1,000 kilometers. So that's sort of like an asteroid. A meteor is, between 2 kilometers and 1,000 kilometers. A meteor is anything up to maybe, meteoroid, in maybe 100 meters across, and some of it vaporizes on the way down to the ground. A comet is something that has a lot of ice. It could be water ice, carbon dioxide ice, methane ice, and as it gets close to the sun, that ice vaporizes from the heat of the sun and it leaves behind a trail.
Oh, okay, so three distinct differences between those. Now, if a meteor is traveling towards Earth and it enters the atmosphere, what happens to it? What actually physically happens to it?
It gets hot, it vaporizes. It tends to leave a layer of sulfur up around 90 kilometers. And this layer is used by scientists to calibrate their telescopes to take sharper photographs. They aim a laser beam, it hits this thin layer of sulfur atoms up there, and then it jiggles around a bit, and then they look at the jiggle of the laser, and then they apply an opposite jiggle to their telescopes, and they deform their telescopes, and that's the sort of stabilization technique used in the telescope. So it will leave behind a trail of stuff.
Now, what if a really big meteor came along, something that was maybe a kilometer wide? What would happen if it got through the atmosphere, it wasn't burned up on the way, it got through towards Earth? What would happen?
It would get through the atmosphere. If it's a kilometre wide and the thick part of the atmosphere is, say, 10 kilometres and it's moving at 30 kilometres per second, that lousy 10 kilometres of atmosphere is not going to make much difference. If it's a kilometre or so in diameter, depending on where it lands, it would kill between 10 to 70, 80% of humanity, depending on whether it landed in the dead heart of a country, or like the outback of Australia, which is very geologically stable, or an ocean, or, and this is a bad scenario, a super volcano. There are around 200 super volcanoes ready to pop, and if it landed on one of those, we could be looking at, say, 70% of the human race dead.
Oh my goodness me, that sounds terrible. If you're a kindergarten child, that's it.
The odds are against it, and we've got ourselves a good network, but what we don't have is a good system for nudging them out of the way. Recently, we did prove with the DART satellite program that by running a 600 kilogram satellite into a big rock at around 5-6 kilometers per second, we were able to nudge it off course and make it throw out 1,000 tons of debris. So with enough warning, we can do something about it.
Now, did this happen to the dinosaurs? There are several theories about how the dinosaurs became extinct. A very strong one is a meteor came. How big was it? What happened when it struck?
10 kilometers in diameter, went through the atmosphere like it wasn't there, made a hole 30 kilometers deep, that's 3-4 times the height of Everest, and 200 kilometers across. The hole filled up because the rock all went wibbly wobbly and threw a layer of debris around the entire planet. And so there was stuff as close as Texas where the debris was this thick, and on the other side of the planet, New Zealand, where it was about that thick, and is part of the death of the dinosaurs. But there are mysteries there because, okay, the birds didn't die, and they're dinosaurs, and you kind of expect that because they could fly away to somewhere better, but how come the reptiles didn't die? Dinosaurs are not reptiles. Reptiles, legs out the side. Dinosaurs, legs under the hip. Another mystery that maybe one of you will solve.
Now, we have asteroid belts in our solar system. How many do we have?
We have an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and the rocks there are half rocky, as in terms of the element silicon, and they're half iron rocks in terms of the element iron. And there's still theories we're trying to work out why. And then out past Pluto, there's another belt called the Kuiper, Kuiper belt, and that's another bunch of rocks and comets. And we think around that is something called the Oort cloud, OORT, about 1 light year out, which is 1/4 of the way to the nearest star. And that's a complete circle, we think, for various reasons.
Goodness me. Now, can these asteroids in the asteroid belts cause Earth any dangers?
Sure. So if you have one asteroid going past another asteroid, it can deflect it, and in that, on its deflected path, can then begin to fall towards the sun and hit the Earth. So they have a gravitational effect upon each other. It's certainly on the cards.
So let's say we are looking out into the universe in the future and we spot this meteor heading towards Earth. It's 30 kilometers, it's 50 kilometers, it's 100 kilometers, and it's heading straight towards Earth. What can we do, if anything, to save the planet?
If we have 3 days warning, not much. If we have 3 years, we will move hell and high water and we will nudge it out of the way successfully.
Okay, how can we nudge it? I've seen movies, I'm sure the children have read books too, where we send up weapons and we blow it into 1,000 pieces and then they all evaporate in the atmosphere. Is that what we do, or would that actually be the problem?
That would be a bad thing. You were better off having the nuclear weapon on one side. It wouldn't break the whole thing into 1,000 pieces, but rather Newton's third law of action and reaction. If it pushes that way, then the rock goes in the other direction. So try to nudge it off, or just run things into it at high speed. You don't have to shift it far. All you have to do is shift it by the radius of the Earth, which is 6,000 kilometers. All you've got to do is just nudge it out of the way. There's a famous photograph from the National Geographic in the 1960s where somebody's at a national park in America and it's just beautiful, and they've snapped a photograph and there's a lake and some mountains, and in the sky is an asteroid that missed us. And that would have been a city buster.
Now, this week, we want you to take a look back in history. There are many meteors and asteroids that actually have come towards Earth or even landed on Earth as a meteorite. We want you to find out what they were made of. From out in the deep of space, in the universe, we have delivered some amazing gifts, like Dr. Karl's gift that was delivered in his garden, in the tree. We want you to find out what are they made of and what can they tell us about the makeup of the entire universe. Dr. Karl, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Gavin.
And goodbye. Thank you.